Hello and welcome in this video. My name is Rocco and we're going to be going over how derivatives are used in ecology. And so just a little bit about myself, I'm a biology major, semi studying in ecology, and derivatives are extremely important in this field of ecology. And so we're going to get right to it. We're going to explain the derivatives and all the relatingness to ecology. So firstly, the derivative or the instant rate of change helps ecologists understand how population grows or shrinks. We'll keep it simple with not too many equations, mainly just focusing on the ideas of the slope and the growth rate in nature. And so, in ecology, scientists often plot population size versus time, and then they ask, how fast is this population changing right now? And that how fast is exactly what tells us what the derivative exactly tells us. And so, what is a derivative? Think of it as a graph in this scenario between population versus time. The derivative is the point on the graph right here, and it tells us how steep it is. A steep upward slope means the population is growing, and a flat slope, like over here, likely means the population is either declining or slowing down or not growing at all. And at this instant, the derivative answers at this instant point, let's say at t equals 0, right here, it tells us how fast is it growing. Is it increasing fast or slow or not at all? And in ecology, this slope or the rate of change is called the population growth rate. And the textbook notes that the population growth rate is the rate of change of a population and can be represented by the derivative of the size of the population. And so, on to the next slide. Here are a few population growth examples. Firstly, we'll take this image right here and explain this graph right here. This is what we call the J curve in ecology. It's where the growth is exponential. And here is what we call the S curve in ecology, is where the growth is exponential right here, where it starts to slow down. But you can always see that the S curve is always a J curve. But a J curve is never an S curve, because the S curve at one point was a J curve until it starts slowing down over here. And we'll talk about what this carrying capacity is in just on the next slide. But to get to it, let's apply this scenario. Imagine a wildlife population in the park. And we'll take the Yellowstone Park example right here. When resources, food, and space is plentiful, a small population can grow. Right here, imagine this is the unit of 100. A small population can grow very, very fast because there's a lot of food and a lot of space. And what this carrying capacity is, just for a brief example until we get to the next slide, it's simply like the limit to how much food and space there is. And so, for instance, historical data shows that recovering bison herds in Yellowstone Park. Imagine this is the graph of the Yellowstone bisons where they were majorly hunted. Between 1902 to 1915, their growth increased by over 18% per year. That means the herds kept growing at a constant percentage rate. Pretty much nearly a straight line or a exponential line. And so, imagine right here, the bee population as well. If they have food and if they have a lot of space, they can grow at a exponential rate as well. And on a standard plot, like right here, population versus time, exponential growth is a J-shaped curve because it's growing exponentially. And early on the slope, aka the derivative, it's already large and it keeps rising. And the derivative concept captures exactly how steep that curve is at each moment. Between this moment, it's not as steep as, say, this moment right here, or even this moment. And so, if the population doubles, the slope roughly, if the population doubles, the slope roughly doubles as well. And if it triples, the slope triples. And so, ecologists say the bigger the population, the faster it's adding individuals. And as you can see, the more individuals they have, the quicker they grow. The more they can grow in less time. And until it slows down, as you can see, it starts slowing down here on the S curve. And the idea, which is that that the rate depends on the current size, comes straight from the derivative notion. And so on to the next slide, we're talking about the limiting factors in the carrying capacity. What causes the growth rate to slow for let's say, the bison in the Yellowstone Park? In the real world, a limited growth can't happen, obviously, because we don't have infinite food and infinite space, which is what the carrying capacity is. It's the limit to how much food and space you can have. And the carrying capacity isn't saying how much that we can't go over it, because we can definitely go over the carrying capacity. It just means that we can't sustain over that amount. So let's say this curve went over. Eventually, it's either going to go down and tank fully down, or it's just going to keep going down until it goes right below the carrying capacity. Because the carrying capacity is saying how much we can support. And so, the maximum population it can support, as the population nears this limit, the growth slows down. And in calculus term, the slope of the population curves gradually falls to zero at the carrying capacity. And so, as you can see, the tangent line will slowly reach zero as we go up here. And one educational source explains, as population nears their environmental limits, the growth rate decreases. As you can see, the environmental limits right here. And onto this population size right here. As you can see, the 2.2% is the growth rate. Of the human species. As you can see, our growth rate is slowing down, and the human population is right now starting to show like an S curve, right? As you can see, it was a J curve right between 1950s to the 2000s, but eventually it's going to start slowing down. Predicted in 2100, it's going to become an S curve. But right now, the human population is currently resembling a J curve, which is exponential. So the human population is currently growing at an exponential rate, but it's slowly slowing down, little by little. And this image is showing the global human population rate. And as the green area is the growth rate, and the pink line is the overtime rate. And as noted, the rate peaked around 1960s at 2.2% and has slightly declined. And this illustrates the declining of our growth rate, which means we are no longer technically growing at an exponential rate. On to this part, how is ecology used? And so we might be asking, why is it useful? If scientists know the current population and how fast it's changing, aka the derivative, they can predict the near future and make decisions. For example, if fish stocks are falling quickly, a steep decline, managers or fishing companies might tighten the quotas. And if an endangered population is rising slowly, conservationists might adjust their strategies. And this in biology is often called the constant intrinsic growth rate, which essentially encodes this slope idea. For example, for whales, researchers estimated R by fitting the curve to long-term data. One study estimates that the humpback whales in Brazil grew about 12% per year, an empirical R from their research data. In that term, pretty much, that 12% year is the derivative of the population at each instant. So they are growing essentially at 12%. In all these cases, no actual calculation is shown. And so the important part of the concept is we think as the derivative as the slope of a population versus time. And since I didn't create any equations to show, we're going basically on the ideas of derivatives, which is the growth rate at the instant time. Now on to the next slide. And so to summarize ecology, a derivative or a rate of change tells us whether a population is booming or declining and how fast it's growing. As you can see, this population data right here is showing the growth of time. The growth over time. And this currently resembles, like I said earlier, the human population. And right here, I don't have an image of a declining, but declining would just be like this one right here. This would be a declining population. And so the entire purpose, sorry about that, my phone just died. Um, so the entire purpose of using derivatives in ecology, ecologists begin by collecting population data in their field, aka the how many bisons are at this time, and they'll keep tracking it between another time, and they can get the data to essentially understand their derivative of how fast they're growing. And this information helps us uh, determine whether the population is growing, remaining stable, or declining. And finally, those results guide conservationists and management decisions such as protecting habitats, limiting hunting, or restoring ecosystems. So, like, let's say a population of birds in the Yellowstone Park was declining, they would adjust the way, and they might even put more funds to protecting to ensure the population doesn't go extinct, because we have a lot of extinct populations or near extinct. And so to conclude, instant growth rate or derivatives help us bridge calculus and ecology together, because it lets biologists go from a graph of data to insights about the environment. And whenever we see a population curve, we have to remember that the steepness at any point is the derivative, and it guides us to predicting how the future is going to grow or decline. And that's the power of calculus and ecology, because it turns data into a actionable understanding curve or information for the future. And that'll be all.